So good evening, everyone. I'm aware that you're all joining Zoom here, so I'm just going to take a moment or two whilst everyone is joining before we start properly. Joe and I are just laughing because we've actually both had to pull blinds down because Edinburgh is actually so beautifully sunny this evening. So I hope the sun is shining with you too, and thank you for giving up your evening to listen to us talk. Throughout this event, Joe and I are just going to talk about some of the work in the Scottish Gallery and Crafts Scotland selects, but please, we can't possibly go through every single artist. We would love to, but we'd be here for a lot longer than half an hour. But if you've got any particular questions, if there's anything you want us to discuss, then please ask them in the chat panel there. If you just send it as a private message, then we'll be able to answer them for you, or we will do as many as we can. But please let us know in case we want to taper this for you slightly. So first of all, good evening everyone. And I'd like to introduce you to Jo Scott, who's joining me this evening. She's head of programs at Crafts Scotland, and she actually celebrates her 10-year anniversary with Crafts Scotland this year. So she has plenty to talk about. She has worked with many of the artists we're going to discuss this evening and who are exhibiting within the exhibition in many different ways through Crafts Scotland. For those that might not know, Crafts Scotland is the national development agency supporting makers and championing craft through exhibition and events programs, digital platforms and strategic partnerships. And one of those partnerships is this very exhibition. So back in March, we, the Scottish Gallery, had to really look at our programme, our upcoming exhibitions. For obvious reasons, everything had changed. And we thought this was the ideal time to partner with Crafts Scotland. We knew that physical events and exhibitions that they were planning were not able to take place, just like ours weren't. And we wanted to look ahead. How do we actually work with a number of amazing artists that we work with and Crafts Scotland do? How do we actually plan a physical exhibition that may become only digital, but hopefully you'd be able to see it in person? And this idea was born. So we have the Scottish Gallery and Crafts Scotland Select. We have 24 makers in the show, an amazing plethora of work. And many of these artists trained at Scottish art schools, or they've been represented by the Scottish Gallery for the span of their professional careers. We've got so many disciplines on show here. So we have ceramics, glass, sculpture, tapestry, jewellery and metalwork. So we really are celebrating the wealth of talent that Scotland has to offer. So in today's event, we're going to offer you a little bit more information about a number of these artists. Like I say, it's not every single artist. We'd love to speak about them all. And Jo is going to offer a little bit of insight into the way she's worked with some as well, and some of our favourite pieces that are in this exhibition. So with no further ado, Jo is going to speak to you about Harry Morgan's work, a really interesting amalgamation of concrete and glass. So over to you, Jo.
Thank you. Just before I do speak about Harry, just to say thank you very much, Kirsty, for inviting us to be part of the exhibition. And thanks for doing all the work for the exhibition, because I came in to see the exhibition and it's beautifully installed. So for anybody who hasn't yet had a chance to go and see the exhibition, I would absolutely encourage you to do so. It was just, I think given we're just coming out of lockdown and not being able to see craft in the flesh, it was just a delight coming in to see the exhibition. So thank you for doing such a sterling job. It looks great.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah, I remember when we first met Harry and we supported him as Crafts Scotland through the Crafts Council's Hot House programme, which is a developmental programme for emerging artists. And it's been really exciting, I think, to see Harry grow not only as an artist but as a person as well. So we've had the pleasure of showing his work several times in the past. Firstly at London Design Fair back in what I think was 2017, and then twice subsequently at Collect. Yeah, I mean Harry's pieces are just incredible in terms of the mixture of the two materials, like Kirsty said. So we've got this kind of fragility of the glass rods against the kind of dense nature of the concrete. And whilst Harry could probably buy the glass rods, he chooses not to buy them, but to actually run his own. So I think, Kirsty, you said you're going to show a video, I think, in the next couple of weeks, that kind of shows Harry running the glass rods. So I would encourage you to kind of watch that, because it's a fascinating process. I've actually got a piece here that I'm going to show you, which is totally not the kind of scale that's in the gallery, but I've got this kind of, if you can see this is one of Harry's kind of earlier kind of smaller pieces, so which has a bit of weight to it. So there's a concrete kind of one end and the glass. So what I love what Harry does is he actually sits the piece balanced on this kind of fragile glass, taking the weight of the kind of concrete on the top. So this is like the small scale object, but if you go into the gallery, you will see that that's hugely scaled up. And I think it's maybe about a metre tall, is it, Kirsty, the piece?
Yeah, it's 80 centimetres, and we've actually got it sitting on our windowsill. So it's what you're looking at here, it's actually a triangular prism. So it looks there like you're maybe looking at a cuboid, but it actually is a triangle pulled up, and it's sitting in the window, so people from outside have actually been intrigued and come to the door to ask what they're looking at. It really does draw you in.
Yeah, and I think one of the scary things about Harry's work is actually having to install it, because they're transported upside down, so with the concrete on the base. So at some point you have to lift the object, turn it over to actually put it the correct way up. So that's quite a frightening moment when you need to grasp the glass, but yeah, hard enough so you don't drop it, but obviously not hard enough that you don't kind of break the piece. So yeah, it's quite a nervous moment.
And Jo, we were saying earlier that for two materials here that are, you know, made by hand, man has had has actually created these. You've got concrete and you've got glass. The result is strangely natural. It's like you're looking at the core section of a permafrost, or two natural materials coming together, ice and land. It's really beautiful, and does fool you into thinking it is something natural.
Yeah, very much so.
I love that kind of that ambiguity when you look at something and you don't quite know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
but
and the piece that you have is beautiful. Yeah, and
I think it's so large in its height that I know it has posed a few problems for Harry himself, and he has done a lot of problem solving with his work. So original pieces would have been solid in their makeup and so heavy, and Harry has cleverly redesigned and problem solved so that actually pieces like this, there is a hollow element inside, meaning it's reduced the weight quite significantly, meaning it's safe to move, it's safe to place. Because you're quite right, Jo, not the easiest work to handle, but he has problem solved that beautifully.
Thank you. So I think the next maker we're going to talk about is Anna Gordon. So Anna is incredibly experienced and has been the head of jewellery and silversmithing for I think over 10 years now. So she's teaching the next generation of makers and artists, as well as obviously being a maker herself. So we showed Anna's work for the first time at Collect in 2019. And she showed a series of brooches. So I think Anna's work is influenced by her surroundings, I guess. So different elements and pieces of architecture, so the detail that you kind of see in architectural kind of buildings and pieces, objects that she sees in and around her, like home and her studio. I think she's also really interested by the like the line drawing. So what you often see in Anna's pieces is maybe a line that's kind of repeated over and over, or a shape that's kind of repeated over again. And one of the other things that I really love about the pieces is often there's like a kinesthetic element to it. So maybe there's a piece that moves, or perhaps you can wear the piece in a different way. So you get a different kind of view or a different feel for the piece. And I think this image of the kind of grey to the right hand side of the screen, I think that's actually a shot of the pieces in situ at the gallery, isn't it, Kirsty?
That's right, yes. And another thing that Anna is she really considers is what you would do with the work when you're not wearing it. They're sizable brooches, they're beautiful, there's a lot of detail. So she's actually created these box frames so that each one has tiny hooks, so that when you're not wearing your brooch, you simply pop it up onto the wall, and it not only does it keep it safe, but you can actually enjoy it as a little work of art, because they're like little sculptures. And the one that you can see in that box frame on the screen there, each of those sets of 3 components, they each just move slightly, and it's just a kind of tremor when you wear them. So it's not something that you manipulate, you don't move, you don't redesign it, it just moves with you. But of course that has meant that she really has had to think about the construction, because as you've got movement in metal, you've got to make sure things don't wear, they don't break. There's a whole other level of design that has to be considered. And I just think they're so playful. You know, we all absent-mindedly move things, you play with rings, it just goes with jewellery. So
and I think sorry, Kirsty.
Sorry, on you go, Jo.
I was just going to say how the light reflects on the piece as well. So depending on how you wear the piece, you know, the light kind of catches on various elements, and often Anna will put like a piece of gold in the piece. And I think just how the light interplays with the piece is just lovely, actually. And like you say, it's kind of, it makes you smile. I think there's like a certain amount of enjoyment from both looking at the piece and I guess wearing it as a beautiful kind of piece of jewellery.
And this, we included this slide here because we wanted you to see quite how different one brooch can appear. So that image on the left and in the middle is actually the same brooch. They're almost like little pan tiles that move. So you can push them one way and suddenly the oxidized silver reveals this gold leaf on the inside. So it goes from a lovely cool oxidized silver to this amazing warmth. And of course that is just as you move, people would see that. But also if you were to play with it and move it, they would reveal themselves. So it really is a playful kind of quality there as well. But like Jo was saying, harking back to the initial inspiration of architecture, things Anna is seeing with her surroundings, and repetitive elements. The brooch on the far right is on the reverse. You have a little square grid, if you like, a frame, and these 4 pieces all sit on that frame, but they're riveted, so each one just has a slight movement again, and just by alternating each of those by 90 degrees, because you've got the corrugated silver, the light hits it in a totally different way, so each of those 4 components are lit slightly differently just when you move. So it's so clever having the light play on these objects. Extremely playful.
And I think sometimes the reverse of the piece is as beautiful as the front as well, in terms of the design.
I should have included an image of the back for you, because it is really intriguing. It's this tiny elements of construction.
Yeah, a reason for people to come in and see the show, Kirsty, so they can see the reverse of the brooch.
Indeed.
And the next artist that we're going to speak about is Patricia, who is based up on the Isle of Skye. I had the absolute pleasure of going to visit Patricia's studio, and you can absolutely see where her inspiration comes from. I mean, she has this amazing view out kind of down into a valley and to the sea. So you can really see in her work kind of like a rugged kind of landscape. And one of the things that I really enjoy when looking at one of Patricia's pieces is not only the outside, but the detail that's on the inside of the piece. So I know when I came to the Scottish Gallery, you and I were looking inside all of the pieces, Kirsty. I mean, it's just, they're raku fired, so what you get on the inside is this kind of like speckled white kind of almost glaze on the inside of the piece, which is just stunning, especially when the light captures it.
And I think quite intriguing again that it's hidden. That's not
Yeah.
your main design element. It's something that if you know it was there, you would look inside, and it's a trace of the making process. So that raku firing, obviously, it's the smoke in essence that's become captured and created those the markings on the work. So this piece on the left is quite a sizable piece actually, and this piece on the right is quite a bit smaller. But two beautiful examples of Patricia's work. And the other thing Joe and I were talking about earlier is, again, how these just look like they are of the land. They look like they are something that you have discovered, you've excavated. They are part of her landscape. And where Patricia lives and works, like Joe was saying, is so important. It really informs what she does. She says that if she was somewhere else, she knows the work would change. So it's all about this, this particular artist maker. The location is just so important. It informs the work. So Dorothy has asked, presenting objects in a virtual setting seems even more challenging than presenting visual art such as paintings. Are there any new exciting tech developments coming along that will help extend the 3D and tactile experience of objects for those of us who may find that online viewing of exhibitions is our new normal? And of course, that is a setting we find ourselves in. So we are finding that whilst we are open as a gallery, we are working really hard to make sure we're bringing you digital content. These events that we're doing, we are recording and we're adding to our YouTube channel. So we're trying to make that accessible. But in terms of viewing the work, we have actually been working with a company called Matterport, who have been coming into the gallery and doing a 360-degree filming. Don't ask me the technicalities on this, but they're filming the exhibitions, and then we're actually putting them up onto our exhibition pages so that you can explore a virtual tour of the gallery. So you will find that for each of our exhibitions going forward. That's a new thing we have discovered. So what we're trying to do is actually bring you an experience that is the gallery, not just the work, because you can view the work on the website and you've always been able to do that. But how can you actually see objects that relate to each other? How do you see them in the setting that is the gallery, that is the exhibition? So Dorothy, I hope that helps explain that we are using Matterport, and that is working quite well, and you can discover those on our exhibition pages. And if I just make this full screen.
This is a beautiful image of the gallery.
So this is an example of what you might see in your virtual tour if you are from the comfort of your own home, if you explore the gallery, and of course if you did come in. So here we have two pieces of Patricia Schoen's works in the foreground, and in the background you've got Sara Brennan's tapestry. We've got willow pieces by Bech and Lizzie Farey, and we've got glass works. You might not be able to tell they're glass there on the shelf, by Choi Keeryong. So beautiful, beautiful work. And again, it's about how they relate to each other, these amazing Scottish makers, each working so differently in similar mediums. That brings me on to talk about Sara Brennan. So Sara is a tapestry weaver, but her work it really comes from a sense of understanding of the area she's in, so the countryside. She actually owns an Icelandic pony, so she's often out for long hikes, and it's a similar landscape that she is riding. So it's kind of southeast near the Pentlands, that kind of area, but a very remote landscape. And being on a horse, she is often going on repetitive kind of treks, and her tapestries, if I just go back one there, the tapestry you see in the top left there is actually the vantage point from Sara riding. So a lot of these, the images she's working with, it's from the point of riding the horse, it's familiar landscape, and it's the notion and atmosphere of this deep, dark, dense forest. And then to completely contradict that, we have these beautiful small tapestries that you can see above the shelf there. And these are studies of particular trees. And they are miniature works. And there is a reason for that. During lockdown, like many, Sara couldn't get to her studio. So she made a mad dash for it when she was able to, when it was safe, and collected one of her small looms. And she set up at home. Now, what she had to do was create small works. They couldn't be too large, but she also really had to think about her materials. So she was using existing yarns, and these are linen threads that she had at home already. And what that's done is given just slight variations and nuances to the color palette. So you've got this lovely spectrum from quite a crisp white right through to more of a kind of beige, kind of warm tone. And they have also been woven on their side. So this large piece top left has been woven as you see it on a larger loom, but these small pieces have all been woven on their sides so that she can get the minute detail that she requires in all of those trees and the branches. And this is an image of Sara at her normal loom, so in her studio. And this is her working on that piece you saw in the previous slide there. So normally quite a sizable tapestry. Scaling down proved quite tricky, even in the dexterity of just working with your fingers to try and do that. And Sara says that choosing each yarn, each colour is really important, and she's actually been using some older yarns that she has. So you might notice in some of the descriptions of Sara's work, it says old grey or old green, and that's just how she terms that specific yarn, which I think is rather charming. So here we go. Here is the example of the larger work on the left, and these two small they're called the small tree tapestries on the right. Offset as well against the glass work from Keeryong, which is totally different. You might not know it's glass. The forms kind of speak of temples. They're called damda. But you've actually got these beautiful little flecks of gold. And if I just move on here to this slide here you go, you can see in more detail. What you've got here is kiln-formed glass. Now, usually kiln-formed glass, you work with the glass in such a way that you've got no air bubbles. An air bubble is seen as an imperfection. But what Choi's doing is the direct opposite. He's actually aggravating and creating these air bubbles because he knows they will become the feature on the work. So he has, you can see all these little gold elements. That is actually, it's gold leaf that has been applied, and it's very precise. It's 23.5 carat gold leaf. And the reason is it's a Korean technique. And it's a technique called kumbo, which Misun, who is Choi's partner, if I just move on, you can see some of Misun's work. She works with kumbo here. So she is applying kumbo, which is almost like a gold leaf, but it's a Korean practice where it's fused to the silver. And these structures, Jo, are beautiful, aren't they? They're exquisite. So they're made from a paper form to start with. And Misun's extremely experimental. She's folding. And then when she actually transfers that to metal, believe it or not, she uses the exact same technique. So she is not soldering lots of components together. She's actually working from a sheet of silver, just like a sheet of paper, and cutting and folding and manipulating, building these structures. So what we have here on the left is an example of one of Misun's brooches, which, as you can see, you have silver, you have oxidized silver, and you have gold as well, which is the kumbo. And on the right, you have an example of the smaller, more kind of intricate, simpler folding technique. And these are little earrings, but each fold is a slightly different facet. So again, just catch the light beautifully. And what you've also got is a burnished edge on each section. And the burnished means you've got the bright silver. So again, catches the light. So it's these little little nuances that really sets her work apart. Really beautiful.
And I think,
sorry, and you go, Jo.
No, you go.
Well, I was just going to say that the other interesting thing is that tradition and heritage here is really important in Mison's work, because you might not be able to see the reference here, her starting point, but it's actually looking at Korean patchwork and the patterns and how that starts to inform her work here. So she's folding, she's using the same kind of notions and ideas that have been around for years, but in a completely contemporary way. And here we have some more views of the exhibition within the gallery at the moment. So it's trying to let you see as well that the work is not set in isolation from each other. We've worked very carefully to allow the work to have conversations with each other. One of my favourite conversations is the Joe Barker's swirl, which is the tapestry at the back there, that beautiful almost ink spot that you're looking at. You've got this chartreuse, this green, this pink, and that speaks beautifully with Lara Scobie's vessel in front there that has this surprising green interior. And then we bounce to the left, and here is Juli's work, where we've got she works with glass fragments, she repurposes them, she engraves them and creates these beautiful, beautiful freestanding pieces. And these are called Wildflower Collection. And each piece here is to represent almost like a single stem, a single piece. But we've got 5 that you can see en masse here.
And so, you were saying you had to choose those from a set of, what was it,
21? Yeah, which was quite something to try and pick, actually, because they're beautiful. But I have to say that one intriguing one, you can't see it in this photo, but that little bottle at the front left is actually a Bovril bottle, and it still says Bovril on the side. And I love that detail, because whilst it says Bovril, the word is interrupted, because what she's done is actually started to engrave across the branding. So your eye's drawn to something, but it's not quite as you expect it to be. So she's playing with us, so we know that these are found works that she has worked into them. And then if we go on to the next slide here, this is a repeat of the previous slide, but just to let you see that there is colour in this show. There's also moments of quiet, of monochrome of the landscape. And we just wanted to really take this opportunity to showcase only a snapshot, of course, of some of the amazing talent that Scotland has to offer in all these different mediums. So here you've got Patricia shown, and you've got Lara Scobie. So both technically ceramicists, but what different work. You know, one looking at the land, and one looking at how you can manipulate work and how you can work with just line. How can you take that to the nth degree?
I love the interplay between the kind of chartreuse in Lara's pieces, and it just picks out the pop of colour in Joe Barker's as well.
That's it, and that's what is very hard for us to bring across this evening, but that you can see hopefully in the virtual tour, if you were to click on that and move yourself around the gallery. You'll never have moved so quickly through the gallery, I'm sure. But of course, if you would like to contact the gallery to make an appointment, we're asking you to email or phone just in advance so we can book you in, so you can have a safe experience here. And you can see the work for yourself. The exhibition continues until the 26th of September, which is a Saturday. And as you can see, 24 artists to explore their work, some of which we've only just covered this evening. We've just literally hit the tip of the iceberg. So please do book an appointment to come and see it if you can, or explore the show online. And thank you very, very much for your time this evening. Sorry about the small technical fault there. What I will say is we are recording these events. So we will actually be recording, editing, and then you'll be able to view them on our YouTube page and the exhibition page in due course. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, Jo, for taking the time to do this.
Thank you very much for having me, and again for inviting us to be part of the exhibition.
Not at all. Thank you very much. And if anyone's got any questions that we haven't covered this evening, I'm sorry we've kind of run out of time just now, but we will take a look and we will get back in touch. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Thanks, bye.